Welcome, everyone. Kathy Rose here, and we're going to talk about the astrological patterns for the Aquarius solar eclipse. It's a new moon on February 17th. Today, I have with me my good friend Agnes Belesne, who is a brilliant astrologer, also a very, very powerful feng shui master practitioner. She's going to share her ideas and her information on this solar eclipse. Welcome, Agnes.
Hi, Kathy. Thank you so much for having me. This is such an amazingly strong energy we will have. So I can't wait to jump right into it and we will flow beautifully together with the astrological insights.
Because this new moon solar eclipse is the beginning of the Lunar New Year, and we have on screen the Aquarius mandala. And so we can tune into the energies that Aquarius brings in just from this mandala. But let's dive in and first remember again the year of the fire horse, the Lunar New Year beginning.
Most importantly, the energies of the fire horse are like amplified uh, energies of the animal itself. As fire is an element that tends to move upwards and outwards at the same time, I find that symbolism very interesting. How fire hardly can be controlled, if at all, and so a horse that is running forward, chasing new goals, hopes, dreams, intentions is also very difficult to be controlled. So I would like to bring in this aspect of fire that is rapidly forward moving, fast, action oriented, and also not easy to be controlled from the outside and in the inside. So we have to have our goals clearly set.
Mhm. And this is echoed and reinforced, of course, by the fact that Saturn and Neptune will conjoin in February and make their complete entrance into Aries. And Aries is a fire sign with great movement and activity. It's very courageous energy. This Lunar New Year just seems important on so many levels. One of the most important I have felt in many years.
Yes, I agree.
All right, so let's look at the chart. Now, um, this is the chart of the eclipse set for Washington, D.C. We're going to also, as we go through this, highlight other parts of the world that are going to be activated for this eclipse. But for this one, you may or may not understand how to read a chart. But when you are looking at, if you look at my cursor here, all of this energy on the left side of the screen, the sun and the moon at 28 degrees Aquarius, which set for Washington, D.C., is right on the ascendant. So when we have angular contact during a lunation, that says something very, very important about the country in which you find this. It means activity, it's a strong trigger. So, this February 17th, it will be exact at 7:01 a.m. Eastern Time. And you can see the annotation in red here. The planet Uranus is square the sun and the moon in Aquarius. That's so phenomenally important. What do you think about that, Agnes?
I really think that, of course, because the ruler of the eclipse is Uranus itself, and it is so highly charged, it's almost like a double whammy, I
Mhm.
would say, of the same energy. And so many of the leaders of the United States are involved also in this energy. I think we will talk later about that. But I think unexpected events definitely are strongly suggested to happen during this period of time.
And I also think for people who have planets or angles in their natal chart between 27 degrees or 29 degrees in a fixed sign,
Oh,
in the fixed signs, yeah, both of us, right?
yes.
The fixed signs are Taurus, Leo, Scorpio, Aquarius. Those people are going to be particularly activated by this eclipse. But even if you don't have angles or planets in that degree zone, the reason that this is so important is because this is the last stand by Uranus in Taurus, making a powerful announcement saying you need to learn the lesson that's been in play for the past 7 years while Uranus has been in Taurus. And it has to do with, I think, learning how to flow, learning how to release attachments, releasing rigidity, learning inner security, because that's what Taurus is trying to teach us. Um,
And with Uranus being in the third house, I also am looking at this eclipse also as a window of opportunity for rebranding.
yeah, rebranding in the US, which
Mhm. Also, personally, whoever is affected, by this with these degrees, um, I definitely would use this expression of rebranding.
Mhm. And we talked about we just did a video on the lunar eclipse, New Year entrance, the beginning of the fire horse. And we talked about how important it is as the new year begins to release stagnation. And this chart 100% says release stagnation, release anything stale, get ready to have electricity flowing through your system. As a matter of fact, here we go. This image really can capture what this eclipse is all about. It is grab hold of the electricity that's in the air. The electricity flows from Uranus. It's a spark, right? It's like jumper cables to a dead battery in a car.
Yes, absolutely. Yes.
And it's
Um,
crackling all around us.
and it's so funny, because in my head, at the previous chart, when I wouldn't know this is the chart of the United States, I would look at it as a private person. I definitely would bring in some sensual romantic energies as well, because Uranus is squaring the moon ruling the fifth house in that chart, and it is squaring the sun ruling the seventh house of partnerships. So I find that interesting,
Mhm.
with some unexpected
Excitement.
flirtatious energy, even,
Mm. Yeah. One thing I will say about this eclipse and this activation is that you need to manage your nervous system. Anytime this electricity is flowing through the air, manage your nervous system and make sure you ground yourself. But what's most important, I think, about this eclipse, which is why I wanted to do this video with you, is that it begins an 18-month ripple of activation, not only for the people like the two of us who are being affected by this eclipse, because you and I both have planets right in that zone that's being activated, but for everyone. So there is this need to be very mindful about where your thoughts go, what you begin, where your mindset is flowing around the time of this eclipse on February 17th, because this 18-month ripple of activation is going to continue to develop it all the way into the late spring of 2027.
Yes, absolutely. And the energy will be revibrated by many of the transits we have coming up during the next 18 months, when this 28-degree fixed sign point or air sign point or fire sign point will be activated. So I find it very interesting. And of course, also I'm looking forward to using this energy to grow to the next level.
Mhm. And we're going to share with you those dates here in a moment. Let's talk about some of the US leaders who have planets that are going to be affected by this eclipse. Now, we want to say right off the bat, that we don't know what will happen. I'm not going to predict what is going to happen, but I am going to say that this eclipse hits their chart directly, and we may find them in the news in a new way, or it may spark new development with them. So we have the President of the United States, Donald Trump, whose descendant, which is the point opposite the ascendant, will receive this eclipse by conjunction, and so will Vice President Vance. Um, and again, 18-month activation period. So, they're already in the news because they're in very public positions, but it's going to be interesting to see. And what is interesting is this eclipse in Aquarius highlights humanity, issues around humanity, the brotherhood of man, connections with people, being humanistic. So, it's going to be really interesting. And then we have Joe Biden, former president, whose chart is very much activated by this. His sun Venus conjunction is at 27 and 28 degrees Scorpio. His nodal axis is at 29-degree Leo Aquarius. So he's going to receive contact. And we haven't heard much about him lately. So it's going to be interesting to see if he comes into the news in some prominent way. Barack Obama will receive contact to his Uranus and his nodal axis. Kamala Harris, exact hit to her Saturn at 28 degrees Aquarius. Gavin Newsom, who is the governor of California, exact hit to his Jupiter at 28 Leo by opposition. So, during this 18-month activation period, their charts are going to be jiggled by the development of this eclipse. It's going to be really interesting.
It definitely will be very interesting to see and follow. And of course, in a way, no surprises there. So
Right.
reality already mirrors, the charts.
Exactly. Now, there is another part of astrology called astrocartography, which then places the planetary lines over the map. You may or may not have ever seen this before. If you haven't, let me explain. So, this is a map of the United States, and the eclipse itself, the sun and the moon line, are right here in the East Coast going directly over DC, just as we saw in the chart. Um, so it again on a map, it draws your eye. And here I am in Virginia Beach, very close to where the sun and the moon are. And it travels down it travels up through um, Pennsylvania and New York. So you can follow those lines. But it's an activator. Now, the reason I wanted to show this map is I wanted to point out the Uranus line. So Uranus is exactly square, the eclipse. Well, look where it flows. It starts off in the south here. It's the purple line. So you can see where my cursor is, close to New Orleans. And then it goes straight up, very close to Minneapolis. And Minneapolis has been in the news a lot lately. Um, and it is exactly hit by Uranus during this eclipse. So we may see more development about all the issues that are happening right now politically in those zones. And I think this is incredibly interesting.
I also find it interesting that both the East Coast line and the Uranus line that you have mentioned, they both go through Cape Canaveral in Florida and close to Houston, SpaceX Texas location.
Mhm.
So both of these Uranian activated activities like rockets and going into space and communication from outer space, satellites are also being activated as we can see in this astrocartography map.
Perfect. Thank you for adding that because that's brilliant. And Uranus is very much connected with technology,
Mhm.
advances in technology. Yeah. All right. So we wanted to point out some other areas in the world. And the eclipse is going to directly go through Paris, France, and activate that. So here's the chart for it, and you can see up by the midheaven, the upper part of the chart, the angle. You see the sun and the moon conjoining the midheaven when this eclipse is set for Paris time frame. So it's going to be interesting to see if anything comes up about France, if there's any particular activity. And the president of France, Emmanuel Macron, his in his natal chart, you see on screen, it says his midheaven is 29 Scorpio. Also, you may not have studied astrology deeply, but he is also at this time receiving a very powerful solar arc. So it says Saturn equals Pluto. Let's just say this, that his chart has been receiving the transit from Uranus, and he's got this other solar arc, which is very, very powerful. And it's serious, it's deep, hard work pays off. So it's going to be interesting to see what's going on, if there's anything in particular with France, or the leader of France during this time.
What's going on in the background, what we
Mhm.
don't see.
Mhm. And what will be continued to be activated during this 18-month period. And here is the astrocartography map, which illustrates it in a different way and may impact your eye. So you see the sun and moon line right here, this yellow and this gray line, and you can see where it hits, very close to Paris, close to Brussels, close to Amsterdam, close to Barcelona, you know. So, we'll pay attention. I'll now please understand, we're not saying it's going to be something negative. We literally don't know. It could be renewal. Uranus is the planet of revolution, could be something revolutionary in the United States, in Paris, somewhere else, but it could also be innovative. It could be a breakthrough, it can be a new idea, it can be releasing stagnation in some way, it could be something humanistic. It's interesting, right?
Yes, I really have a very positive outlook, and I really believe that, Uranus has to bring a breakthrough this year of 2026 with the fire horse year, that ultimately all the changes will have a positive outcome.
Hmm. All right. One more area that stood out to me as I was looking at the world map for this eclipse is in India. Now, this one really intrigues me. Um, Close to what used to be called Calcutta, which is now called Kolkata. I think I'm pronouncing that correctly,
Mhm.
but close to that part, and I'll show you the map in a second. Um, Not only will the sun and the moon for the eclipse be on an angle in India, but Uranus also. So when I show you the map, you'll see why this is so important. One thing I want to say, sometimes when we have Uranus aspecting a lunation, a full moon, a new moon, or an eclipse, sometimes Uranus can also symbolize earthquakes or eruptions or power outages, unexpected things. Now, I'm not saying we have to be fearful of any of that, but sometimes the earth actually responds by moving or having something palpable happening with the planet itself.
Yes, and also India, and looking at the map, that's Mars line going through in the middle of India, right, along with the Uranian line.
Mhm.
I also would add that India is on a rapid development, on the verge of a rapid development, both in terms of population as well as the economy. So India will be the most popular, is already the most populated country in the world. And the GDP growth and also their space travel, their plans also to land on the moon are widely publicized and also very interesting, just in these terms of bringing maybe an unexpected publicity, unexpected events that really put India more on the world stage
Mhm.
as a leader.
Something coming forward. When we are dealing with astrocartography, one thing we watch for are when there are planetary lines crossing, and here, unlike the other maps we've shown you, in this zone right here, you see the purple line from Uranus actually crossing the sun and the moon, which was depicted on the chart as those planets on angles. So you want to watch for this whole zone. Um, it's a very, very interesting time frame. In particular, in the next couple slides, we're going to talk to you about the time frames for when this 18-month period of activation is happening. Usually, when an eclipse takes place, I say there's maybe a 3 or 4 month period of activation, that it's alive and active for that time frame. But in this case, because of the pattern of planets, it's much longer and much bigger. It's making this profound statement. So here's the timeline, the wave of development. Okay, so for those of you who've studied astrology, you may find this interesting when you're actually looking at which planets are activating the degree. If you haven't studied astrology, please just understand the wave of development starts in February of 2026 and goes through July of 2027. And it's cool if that's all you absorb from this, if you haven't studied astrology, because this can be a little overwhelming otherwise. But the eclipse happens February 17th, where the sun and the moon are at 28-degree Aquarius. So what we're going to be doing is illustrating when planets are hitting 28-degree Aquarius or Leo, because Leo is the opposite sign. And we have the nodal axis changing signs. Nodal axis in July moves into Aquarius, North Node in Aquarius, South Node in Leo. And from July to October, the nodal axis will transit the degrees of the solar eclipse. Do you have anything that you want to add on the nodal axis triggering this?
I really was just thinking that don't we also have in October the Venus retrograding, Kathy?
Yeah, but I don't think it hits that degree.
It doesn't hit that degree. Mhm.
It starts in Libra and then it retrogrades back into Scorpio.
Yes. And of course, like the nodal axis in the Aquarius Leo axis will have an effect in our personal life, I feel also on our relationships. So definitely it will put many relationships, into the consideration whether freedom and being alone, living alone, being free, or staying maybe in a more playful mode is what people will choose. So I think it definitely will have an effect on our personal lives as well.
Because the issue comes up as the nodal axis moves into Aquarius Leo, we get to explore ego and when we are overly attached to ego, or when we are working from a more humanitarian point of view, when we are connected. And of course, having a personal, healthy inner ego, a personal sense of self and self-worth is important, but needs to be balanced by Aquarius, which is we're also very connected to each other. So the shift is going to be interesting, July through October, when the nodal axis gets hit or changes and hits the degree of the eclipse.
Very much so.
It's significant. And then in November, it actually begins a little bit in October, but it comes forward very loudly in November. Mars will be in Leo, hitting the degree from the eclipse. So it'll be opposite. But what is absolutely fascinating about this is Jupiter is going to enter Leo in the summer months in July, but Jupiter will advance and hit these late degrees of Leo. You'll see on screen it says December. So Mars and Jupiter are going to be playing together right around the degree of the eclipse in November, December, overlapping slightly the time of the nodal axis. This is just huge activation of what we need to be focusing on and learning from the solar eclipse that happened in February.
Including the midterm elections in the United States
Yes,
right at that time.
that's going to be a very juicy time. It's going to be very, very significant. Yes. Um, and then shortly after, this incredible time in the fall in the northern hemisphere, it's the fall. Um, with all this activation, shortly after that, early in 2027, we have Mercury hitting 28 degrees Aquarius, January 31st, 2027. And this is significant because Mercury is going to begin a retrograde and hit that degree more than one time. Um, so let's look at this on the next page. Mars is going to retrograde. So this is why Mars in Leo is so incredibly important, working with Leo, because Mars and Jupiter are going to retrograde and hit these degrees more than one time. So Mars hits it in October, November, and then in February, late February to early March, it hits that degree again, but this time retrograde. So it's another opportunity to develop. And again, I want to say, be paying close attention to where your thoughts are going, what new projects you may be starting, what part of yourself you may be healing, what things are happening in your life around the time February 17th, 2026. Not just on that day, but around that entire time. And then watch it develop. And you can consciously step into purposefully moving whatever you begin in February, moving it forward during these time frames. Whether you have this activation in your chart or not, it's happening for everybody. So
Very,
then,
very strong energies, definitely, and so many implications, on
mhm,
in our personal lives. I can't help to think we don't do predictions here, but um, if the aftermath of the midterm elections, what needs to be reviewed, reconsidered, or even acted upon. I also like to pay attention to um, outer space events that may come up, including maybe what the United States is planning, another moon landing, if maybe that will be started and then retried again. And of course, many other events in our personal lives. And I really believe that this is a call to be more of a humanitarian, to take a look at our lives and realize that we are better off if taking care, instead of taking care of our egos, we make sure that by the end of each day, we have helped someone who truly needs help.
mhm. That's the Aquarian dimension,
Yes.
connecting with humanity and the oneness and moving into that kind of lovingness for sure. And yeah, the midterm elections in the US, which happened in November of 2026, it's very significant. I've posted on social media the fact that both President Trump and Vice President Vance are receiving a significant solar arc, the exact same solar arc in both of their charts within 6 months. Trump will receive solar arc Neptune opposite his sun, and Vance will receive the same thing 6 months later. So that is telling me that this midterm election is going to very much affect what is happening in the United States in government and the office of the president. And I'm not going to make a prediction, positive or negative, because Many times when we receive a transit from Jupiter, there is growth and expansion, but it can also be growth and expansion in something that needs to happen. So we don't know which way this is going to go. So Mars begins the retrograde and hits this point in February, March. And then Mercury begins the retrograde and hits 28 Aquarius in February. Now, pay attention to just how potent these overlapping energies are. And again, like I said in the beginning, all you really need to remember is the activation starts in February, it goes till July of 27, so that you don't get overwhelmed with all these little points. Mercury will end the retrograde in the middle part of March, March 16th at 28 Aquarius. I mean, you can't make this up. Why is the late part of Aquarius or the late part of Leo showing up over and over and over again with planets making their station? For those of you who aren't astrologers, the station means if a planet begins or ends a retrograde at a certain degree, that's called a station, and that highlights that degree, makes it more powerful. So Mercury ending the retrograde March 16th, 28 Aquarius, then Mars in May ending the retrograde 28 Leo, and then Jupiter ending the retrograde. The D means it goes direct. So if you're looking at screen, the D means direct. Jupiter ending the retrograde, hovering at 28 Leo in July of 2027.
Wow.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know what you have projected for yourself, Agnes. Your art is doing extremely well right now, and you're very successful in your exhibitions. But for someone like you, or someone, like me, where I have activation happening in my chart, we need to be thinking of what do I want to create? What do I want to grow? Where do I want to go with this energy, right?
Very much so. And also on the sidelines, like unexpected new opportunities coming in. So also to keep an open mind, with both actually with Aquarius and Leo energy, with Leo being a little bit more on the playful, creative side. Of course, Aquarius can be sometimes a little fixated or rigid in thinking. But overall, it also is just so beautifully coming together with all the outer planets in air or fire signs. I just would like to mention it. I know those of you who follow us know that Aquarius is an air sign. Some people, for some reason, sometimes think that it's a water sign. It is not. So Aquarius is fixed air and Leo is fixed fire, aligned with, as we mentioned earlier in the previous episode, with Saturn in Aries, Neptune in Aries, Jupiter in Leo, Uranus in Gemini, Pluto in Aquarius. So everything is air fueling all of this fire.
Yeah, they work together and they make things bigger.
And
You know,
faster.
and faster. And there is one thing that I wanted to mention that I'm just remembering right now, which is when I teach astrology, I talk about the fact that every single sign has the potential to manifest in the most positive way, but also the potential to manifest in the shadow. And we have to understand the full spectrum possibility with each sign. And for Aquarius, we've already mentioned the most positive, which is humanitarian, breakthrough ideas, connecting, caring about each other. But the shadow side of Aquarius, fixed air, can also be very rigid thinking. Fixed can be tight, rigid, and the air sign is thinking. So it can be, rigid opinions, rigid thinking, and we want to be aware of that and go for the humanitarian connection instead.
I also will add that I do see in personal charts with people with strong Aquarian energy, any personal placement, Sun, Moon, or rising sign, even Venus, even Mars, um, they tend to have a very divisive energy. So there is something to be said when we talk about the shadow side of Aquarius, that it very much can be associated with some kind of divisive energy. People with strong Aquarian energy, I have seen time and time again, they leave their families of origin just because it may feel restricting for them. So,
Mhm. Mhm. Interesting. So we want to
so
talk
just,
about,
I'm so sorry. I just also wanted to say, I don't know why it came to my mind with this also. Um, Sports and NBA and basketball. One day I would love to do a research with you, Kathy. I find it fascinating that the top NBA players, each one of them has a significant planet in Aquarius.
oh,
No wonder they are so tall on the physical level, but it's interesting.
oh, that is
So
fascinating.
that being individualistic, having this energy of being in a way leading is strongly indicated with athletic energy as well in
Mhm.
Aquarius, specifically with
Mhm.
basketball players.
Mhm. Well, Agnes, let's talk about the world leaders, more world leaders that are activated. Why don't you take this slide and let's chat about this because this is really interesting.
Yes, it really is interesting. I will start with the Hungarian Prime Minister, which, as most of you know, I am from Hungary originally, and how his Mars will be activated. This is interesting for two reasons. Hungary was trying to facilitate the peace talks between the Ukraine and Russia, and how Vladimir Zelensky chart is also activated by these energies. Also, we will have elections in Hungary as well in the spring of 2026. So another powerful activation for the current prime minister. And then the Middle East with Netanyahu's Mars at 26 Leo is also very interesting. We didn't put it up here because Iran has different charts we use in astrology, but some of the mostly used charts mention Iran's moon at 28-degree Leo, so that can be activated as well. So I would,
28 Scorpio, I think.
sorry, 28
Yeah.
Scorpio. So through Netanyahu, Israel and Iran will very possibly receive an activation at the same time. And then the NATO Secretary General Mark Rutte, who used to be the leader of the Netherlands, has also a very strong activation at the top of his career line. So that's fascinating. While Europe potentially could be up in arms, it's a very different approach to many of the world situations. They have a different angle, they have a different approach. And right next door to the United States, the Mexican president, Claudia Sheinbaum Pardo, receives also an activation from this transit, all of these transits. So all of these people from all of these, from this long period from February 2026 all the way essentially through beyond February of 2027 will be activated.
So the impact is, hey, let's learn to get along. Let's learn to resolve conflict in ways where we remember to love each other. I mean, that's the ideal way. I would love to see this flow forward, but I am an optimist and I am an idealist, but there is a wave of energy that wants to move everything forward, and this is a very, very active period. The year of the horse is bringing in so much. And of course, the year of the horse will end in February of 2027, and then we begin the fire goat. Um, and this activation really is going until July of 27, but still the year of the horse is charging into our lives, bringing so much development throughout the world.
Definitely.
So the final thoughts, I always like to end videos with the final thoughts. How do we integrate this? What do we do with it? Um, I am a Reiki master. I took my Reiki master training way back in 1988, and I taught Reiki for a long time, initiated a lot of people, and I still to this day do Reiki every single day, and I do a lot of distance Reiki. The position I use for my hands when I do distance Reiki is the position that's on screen here. I kind of make a little chamber with my hands, and then I will put either a person or a place or sometimes the entire world in my hands and send distant healing life force, sparkling radiant life force. For this this powerful new moon solar eclipse in Aquarius, I just think this is the perfect image. Put the world in your hands, bless it, send it light, send it healing, with whatever technique you use, whether it's Reiki or some other technique, whether it's prayers, whether it's affirmations. The ideal is unification, getting along with each other, finding common ground, being able to communicate with each other. It's very, very important. And it begins and ends with the action we take every single day with our own consciousness.
Very much so. My final thought would be that on every level, personal, humanitarian, world politics, rebranding is the breakthrough. Rebranding ourselves to align with these fast forward moving energies, not being stuck in stale energies. Use feng shui to create the energy you need to move forward. And if necessary, rebrand yourself to keep moving with the energies that will lead to a breakthrough.
Well said. And when we think of rebranding, it really is making a choice to set a new image or to put a particular energy in motion to move it forward on the body, mind, and spirit level.
Yes.
Mhm. So, this Aquarius solar eclipse, February 17th, the beginning of the Lunar New Year and the fire horse energy coming in is very significant. And Agnes and I just wanted to share this with you so that you can participate in your own growth, whether your particular natal chart is affected directly by this eclipse or not. You're going to feel it in the world. So take some personal time to have a celebration, to make choices, to pay attention to your mindset. What are you beginning right around this solar eclipse? And one last thing, it is a perfect time to consider having a feng shui consultation as you rebrand yourself, understanding how your personal life is affected by feng shui and all the powers. Agnes is offering a special discount right now to celebrate the Lunar New Year. And you can check out her consultations and personalize what this beginning of the fire horse is all about for you.
Thank you. Thank you so much. And please comment, like, share, subscribe to Kathy's channel. And we both are very attentive to questions and comments. So please feel free to share.
Thank you so much, Agnes, and
Thank you, Kathy. Bye.
bye for now.